Hey there, this is Andy C from Pieces of 8-Bit. Welcome to my latest video. This week we are going to be going back to the arcade. So as part of my month with series with the Master System, I wanted to go back and have a look at some of the arcade ports on that platform. Now, for me personally, in the 1980s, going to the arcade was a real treat. It was one of those things where the games in the arcade, it was at a time when the games in the arcade were better than the games that you could buy at home. So the ports were kind of cool, they scratched the itch a little bit, and it wasn't really until kind of the 90s and getting on towards the end of the 90s really where we started to see the consoles catching up and overtaking the arcade cabinets. And so, you know, that was really when the arcade started to die out. We'd had the kind of golden age of arcade games through the 1970s into the early 80s, with the rise of Pac-Man and Pong and Space Invaders, you know, all the real classics. And then there was the gaming crash in 1983, and certainly in the US, that started to die off a little bit. So, but as things kind of got through the 1980s, we started to see that come back a little bit. And for me, as a kid in the 80s, going to the amusement arcade and putting a few pounds in, well, it wasn't, you know, 10p's back in those days, into the machine and playing some of the arcade classics was just a real treat. So I wanted to go back and revisit that, but obviously this is a month with, so the point here is that I'm going to be looking at those games through the eyes of the Master System. So I've got the Master System sitting here. I've picked 3 of my absolute die-hard favourite classic arcade games, and I'm going to have a look at the ports of those and talk to you a little bit about the games. And a bit like if you watched my Sonic video last week, it wasn't really a review, it was just kind of a revisit and just a kind of bit of a talk. So it's a little bit of a trip down memory lane for those of you that remember some of these games. I am going to be doing some more Master System reviews. I have really genuinely thoroughly enjoyed having the Master System out and available to play at any moment throughout January. It's been a little shining beacon of light in what has been an otherwise pretty grim January month, as January always is. And so, yes, I'm going to be doing some more reviews of Master System games in the future, because there's just so many things that I've ended up picking up quite a bit for it, and there's just so many games that are great. One of the things that was suggested to me was Wonder Boy. I've got Wonder Boy 3, Dragon's Trap, on the Master System, which is a really, really fantastic little game, and I've really enjoyed playing it. It's very, very challenging, actually. First time I've ever really played any of the Wonder Boy games. What I'd quite like to do is go get the other, you know, the first 2, and then maybe do a sort of back-to-back review of all 3. So this is absolutely not the last you've seen of the Master System, but I really did want to go and have a go at some of these arcade classics, because these games for me really stand out as absolute classics in the 80s. And unlike some of the games on the Master System, having not owned a Master System or knew anyone that had one back in the day, a lot of these games are games that I've played before on various different platforms, and obviously in the arcades themselves. So the games I've picked to review, and there are so many I could have picked. I've got another couple of games. I've got a nice copy of Operation Wolf, which I can't really do very easily because I don't have the light gun or a CRT to put it on. So that's going to not be a great choice. I've got Afterburner, which is another great arcade classic. But the 3 that I've actually picked, which I absolutely love, is the first one is Rtype from 1987 in the arcade, out on the Master System in 1988 by a company called Outrun. Outrun, the absolute classic, and for those of you who know me, this is one of my absolute favourite games of all time, certainly one of my favourite races. I love Outrun, and back in the 90s, back in the early 90s, I actually went on a bit of a pilgrimage to go and find an Outrun cabinet with, you know, with the moving Outrun cabinet that used to go and you steer and the cabinet would move. I absolutely loved that. It was one of the best games that I remember from my childhood. Couldn't find one in the 90s, and then recently, just a couple of years ago, in fact not even that long, maybe even last year, Retroids in Worcester, which is a retro arcade that I go to quite a lot, they actually had one of those units, one of only 2 in the UK, for a short time. It wasn't there for very long. It was quite problematic being with its age, and so unfortunately they sold it, but I did get to play it, and it was an absolute treat. So that's a game from 1986, an absolutely fabulous game, wonderful soundtrack, and that came out on the Master System in 1987. And then we've got Bobble. What a classic, what a wonderful game by Taito, and that came out in 1986. So we're going to have a look at those 3 games, do a bit of a trip down memory lane. You can all laugh at just how terrible I am, especially R-Type. I'm absolutely rubbish at R-Type. I've always been rubbish at R-Type. Doesn't matter how many times I play it, I'm just rubbish at it. I don't know why. And yeah, I keep going back and playing it, and I do really love it, but having not played it for quite a while, I'm even more rubbish than I remember being. So yeah, we'll have a look at that. So let's go have a look at the 3 arcade classics, and I'm going to just talk over them again. Like I did last week, I've already done the gameplay, so I'm just going to talk over the gameplay a little bit and talk a little bit about the games as we go. So hope you enjoy. I'll see you on the other side. So here we go. This is Rtype, and this is the Master System version of Rtype. So let's have a look to see how good we think this port actually is. So just a little bit of background. Rtype is side-scrolling space shoot 'em up, where you are flying a futuristic spaceship called the R9A Arrowhead. Enemy design is unique and memorable. They're basically biomechanical, I can't speak, biomechanical enemies, and they are inspired by the works of a chap called H.R. Geiger, who you may have heard of, is in fact the designer of the Xenomorph in Alien. And you can see that, you'll see that in a minute. I'll point it out when you can spot. You can definitely see the inspiration for that. So got some pretty cool weapons. You get power-ups as you go, which is quite common for these sorts of games. And if you hold the fire button down, you get a sort of like kind of a force. I don't know what they call it. I can't remember. It's like a build. You basically build up the weapon. You can see me doing it here. You hold the weapon down and you sort of fire a bigger shot, and it will fire through a stream of aliens and helps you to defeat bigger bosses as well. It's very, very challenging, as you can see. It requires a lot of precision and a lot of avoidance. These are the aliens that I was talking about here. If you look at these, and when I saw them initially, I was like, oh yeah, they look like aliens from Alien, and there's a reason for that. It's because that was the inspiration for them. So it wasn't a coincidence, for sure. So yeah, level design is really, really intricate and very detailed, and the bosses are also well known for being, well, epic, frankly. For some reason, I did play this. I was playing this game while I was doing the recording, and I did get to the end of level boss, and I unfortunately died. I got squashed. I went through the wrong way at the end. I nearly defeated him. But in this recording, somehow I don't get that far, and I just don't seem to progress too much. But it's okay. You know what? I don't mind. I'm cool with that, because Rtype is well known for being very, very difficult, and I don't think I've ever been any good at it, and I have played it quite a lot. So how does the Master System version hold up? Well, as you can see here, I think it's really good. Yeah, I think it's pretty true to the arcade. You know, it's got the true sort of look and feel of the arcade version. Very colourful, very playable, very challenging still. Has that wonderful soundtrack. Yeah, I think it's great. I've really enjoyed playing it on here. I've got a little filter on at the moment. You'll notice, as I mentioned before on previous videos, I tend to use emulators when I'm filming. So I'll play this game on the Master System quite a bit with the Master System controller, and then I'll go and plug it into the. I'll run the emulator up and play it on the computer to do the recordings. It just is easier that way. I've actually applied a little CRT filter over the top. If you saw the video that I did of Alex Kidd, it looked very, very sharp, and it looked lovely, but I didn't think it looked too authentic, so I've added some filters over the top to give it that sort of 1980s vibe. But yeah, it's really, really good. It's very responsive. It's very, very challenging. I've really, really enjoyed it. So definitely a thumbs up from me if there's a port on the Master System. I mean, this is the first one we've looked at. All three, I'm going to, spoiler alert, all three are really, really great. But this is a particularly good port of an arcade classic onto the Master System. So if you happen to own a Master System, or you happen to own the cartridge and you want to play it on the emulators or whatever, definitely go check out Rtype. So yeah, let's just leave this a little bit longer and see how far I got. I think I got through this bit here. You'll notice on the front there, I've got a little power up, and what that power up does is it absorbs the little red fireballs or the things that get fired at you. It doesn't absorb much else. It doesn't absorb the fact that I might crash into the scenery, which is another issue with this as well. You can crash into the scenery. I hate that section there. It is super challenging. I think I did get further than this in the recording. I feel like I want to just leave this running a little bit, just for my own for a little bit of kudos. But yeah, maybe I'll just do that after I'll just stop talking. Leave it on. But yes, as I say, Rtype, go check it out. Next up, we're going to have a quick look at Outrun. I'm going to leave this running for a little bit for your delectation. Enjoy. This is Rtype on the Master System, 1987 by Outrun. So here we go. This is Outrun, and as I've already mentioned, this is one of my absolute favourite arcade games of all time. I just love this game, and I remember playing this in the 80s and just being so blown away by the colour and the sound and the graphics and the music and everything. So it's really good. So just a little bit of background for Outrun. This is a game obviously that needs very little introduction indeed. This came out in 1986 in the arcades and then 1987 on the Master System. It was developed by Sega themselves and designed by Yu Suzuki. It's obviously an arcade style racing game, absolutely focused on speed, skillful navigation, time-based progression. It's quite a quick game. I mean, there's lots of sort of different routes that you can take, but I mean, ultimately there's only quite a limited number of stages, but it is really difficult, and you can pick your route, and that in itself was quite a cool thing. You didn't have to be just sort of forced down one particular track. You could could choose your route to the end, which is kind of cool. So yes, this idea of these branching paths, which was pretty unique for a game at the time. The only other game that I can recall from the sort of similar era, which was sort of a couple of years later, was Chase HQ, which was another one of my absolute favourites. Best played, in my opinion, with a wheel in the arcade, but this is obviously the Master System version of this. Just waiting to see what point I actually started this. We're getting some demos, probably eking out because I think I only managed a couple of stages, and I think actually you'll see just how close I was to finishing the second stage. Weirdly, I'm actually a lot better at this in the arcade than I am on an ordinary controller, and I suppose that might be to do with the controller, but the arcade version is more challenging in as much as obviously you've got I don't know if it's the same time or not, but I always found the console versions, the Mega Drive version in particular, I did actually find it easier than the arcade version, but I found this one perhaps a little trickier, and I think that's maybe down to the controller. One of the other really cool things that I liked about this was the ability to be able to pick different music at the beginning. There are 3 absolute Sega music classics, and I don't know if there's ever going to be a song that I'm going to get picked up on copyright for, it's going to be this one. So you have Magical Sound Shower, which I think is what I end up picking, Splash Wave and Passing Breeze, and when you start the game, that's one of the cool things, is you actually just select the music that you're going to play, which is really, really cool, and I think that's just about to come up. I'm actually going to start the game. I'm trying to do a talk over this here, and ultimately I've just been watching the demo this whole time. Like I say, I think it might be because I've only got about 2 minutes when I'm actually driving. There you go. So you saw him pick the music there. That's really cool. I was actually struggling with the buttons because I think I've mapped the buttons on the emulator around the other way. You can hear the music is also a lot quicker on here, and I'm told that is down to that is the emulator that's doing it differently, and it's to do with the difference between the NTSC versions and the PAL versions and whatever, so I won't bore you with the details of that. So yeah, here he goes. This is the first level. This is the one that's most familiar. The sort of more graphically enhanced, the sort of more modern versions of this game, there is, and including the arcade version, there's a lot more sort of detail in this. You sort of, you're seeing the sea on the left-hand side there, which you don't have. There's more cars. There's more detail on the cars. There's more colours. And that's typical of the arcade version, and I think probably the best port that I've seen, I think, is probably the the Sega Genesis version, I think, from that era anyway. That's a really good, quite a faithful version of it. And I always crash here. Oh, I should avoid it there. That's like the hardest bit. Oh, I avoided it by almost completely stopping the car. Yeah, that was probably not the best idea, but I think I did okay. That little sort of S-bend, and it's exactly the same in the arcade version as well. That little S-bend catches you out. So here we go. Here's the split. And you see this sort of that weird kind of meshing there as they've sort of tried with the very limited power that the Master System had to make it look like there were two roads splitting off. I think they did a pretty good job. Then we get our checkpoint. And yes, I know I've got about a minute left now because ultimately I don't think I made it to the end of this stage, but boy did I get close, and you'll see in a minute. So yes, I played this on a number of different platforms actually. I played this on the Commodore 64, I think. I played the version on the Spectrum. Obviously I played the Genesis version. I don't know if I ever played the Amiga version. Was more of a fan of Lotus Turbo Challenge. That was certainly probably the racer to get on that platform. Also a really, really good game. Quite, I suppose, some similarities. Lotus 2 in particular felt more like an arcade racer than certainly the first one did. The first one felt a little bit more serious. But yeah, so this is Outrun. I'm going to leave... foolish. I made a couple of serious errors on here, which I really shouldn't have done. Interestingly, the strategy for this, you can use the gear to help you quite a lot. You don't really... I generally found I didn't need to use the brake all that much. You can kind of slow the car with your gears, so you can go into the low gear and remember to change it. Actually, one criticism on the Master System is that yeah, it was a nuisance. It kept changing gear because you use up and down on the D-pad, and yeah, it wasn't. It kept changing gear to low, and I kept failing all the time. Look how close I was. That's outrageous. Some games you would just sort of coast over the side, but yeah, and you can see there's the map there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it's 6 stages, isn't it? And then this little piece at the end here where you pop your music in. All of it's really faithful to the arcade classic, the arcade original. So yes, Outrun, what a game, what a game. And I think this port actually is really, really good, you know, considering the limited capability of this. And I can imagine if I'd owned a Master System in the 1980s, coming home, this would have been a game I absolutely would have had. And coming home and playing on this, I would have played this a lot. Yeah, I would have been a lot better than you've just seen just now. I generally consider myself to be pretty decent at Outrun. So there you go. That is Outrun on the Master System. A real classic. Definitely go check it out. Let's go now and have a look at Bobble by Taito, and we'll have a look at the port for that too, and that will be the last one. Okay, so this is the last of my arcade classics on the Master System. This is Bobble by Taito. Taito? Is that right? Taito? I think that's right. I don't know if I've ever known that the correct way to pronounce it. I assume that's right. So now is the beginning of a fantastic story. Let's make a journey to the Cave of Monsters. Good luck. So this is the adventures of Bub and Bob. Bub is the green monster, Bob is his brother, the blue monster, and it's their job to rescue their girlfriends from the Cave of Monsters. It's a lovely little game. The music, as you can hear, is really fabulous and catchy. Yeah, this is a really, really nice arcade port, and it's a very, very popular game on the Master System, I believe, as well. Yeah, this is me playing, and I think it was okay on this level, and then I think I screwed up and lost a couple of lives really early doors, if I remember rightly. But yeah, the idea is obviously that you capture these. Yeah, this guy, he was really annoying, and I tried to run away from him, and he was quicker than me. The idea is you catch these little monsters in bubbles, and then you pop the bubbles, and then when you've done that, you complete the level. And they sort of leave various things, and if they catch you, obviously like that, then you're done for. Yeah, this guy caused me a real headache really, really early on. They go red when there's sort of like if there's one left, or if you put it in a bubble and then you don't pop the bubble quick enough, they sort of burst out the bubble, and then yeah, and then you lose a life. Second level to lose 2 lives, really, really rookie. And it's annoying because I'm not actually too bad at this game. I actually really enjoy it. I could play this game for hours. It's really, really addictive. And like I said, with the Master System version, having the passwords is quite handy because it's got a sort of puzzle solving layout to it. It means that, you know, like if you get quite far in the game and then you lose and you're trying to work out how to solve that for that particular level, it's quite frustrating if you've got to go all the way back to the start. So it's quite nice, especially in this day and age. You've got to go back and pick up from where you left off, which is really cool as well. And also that whole kind of thing where you'd be told it was tea time and you had to turn your console up and go and have your tea or your dinner, depending on where you live, and there'd always be that no, just turn it off, and your parents would pull the plug out the back, but you probably have a little notepad with all the passwords on, so it wouldn't be the end of the world. So yes, like I said earlier, the arcade version has 100 unique levels, and the Master System has 200 unique levels, and I don't get anywhere near even reaching 100, let alone 200. Yeah, it is incredibly addictive. Lots of different enemy types. At the moment, we're just seeing these sort of little clockwork monsters here, and there's lots of things for us to pop. So the green bubbles are the bubbles that I've blown. There's these sort of little buttons, the little power-uppy ones that spell something out. I think you get an extra life. And then there's these blue ones here that sort of do this. I don't know what you call that. It's a little wave, which is quite handy if you're struggling to catch one of the monsters at the end there. You also have a time limit, so eventually it will tell you to hurry up. And then there's a sort of another little monster which will kind of come and hunt you down if you're not quick enough. And then you lose. Yeah, I don't think we see that. I think I get told to hurry up at one point, but I don't think we see it happen quite that badly. Did I get caught by that? No, I didn't. Oh, yes, I did. Absolutely rubbish. Absolutely rubbish. So yes, really, really fun little game. Like I say, very bright, colourful graphics, and the Master System version is really good at living the faithful version. Don't know if I said what year it came out on the Master System. So it came out in 1986 in the arcade, and was it 1986? Yes, 1986 in the arcade. And it came out in 1988 in Japan, and it was called Final Bubble Bobble in 1988. We didn't see it in Europe until 1992, in fact. Even though this says 91, I don't think we actually saw it until 1992. So it was quite a few years actually after it came out in the arcade, but that didn't stop it being successful. And obviously, think about it, 1992, the Master System was already quite old by this point. But that didn't seem to detract from people wanting to go back and have another play on this. It did appear on some other platforms as well, so it would have appeared on the Commodore 64, the NES as well, yeah, it's been the inspiration for lots of other games, and there's been new versions of it and remasters and all sorts of things throughout history. So, yeah, really great. We also saw Rainbow Islands and Bubble Symphony as well, which is a spin-off. Not a game I've played before, but yeah, might be one to go and have another look at as well. But yeah, really, really great game. Quite a significant cultural impact, I think, in terms of as arcade games go. And in fact, all of the games that I've picked for this video, I think, are quite sort of culturally significant. And so, yes. But there you go. I'll leave this running for a little while. I didn't do too badly. I don't know if I've even seen the continue actually appear, but I did do it. This might be it actually. Was it here? I can't even remember now. I did do one continue. I mean, you've sort of basically got infinite continues, which is quite handy. So if you don't do the level, you can just keep doing it until you get it right, which is really nice as well. There we go. So yeah, let's leave this running a little bit, and you can have a look at this. But yes, this is Bubble Bobble. Absolutely fabulous little arcade game. Really, really lovely. Great little soundtrack, and a wonderful port on the Master System as well. So there you go. Those were my 3 top picks for the Master System. My 3 top arcade port picks, I should say, for the Master System. Rtype, Outrun, and Bobble. Rtype, what a game. Amazing. Still stupidly difficult. Looks fantastic on the Master System. Really, really good fun to play. Works really well with the old Master System style controller. Yeah, I really enjoyed Rtype. It is just still so unbelievably frustrating, and you just want to go back and do better at it. It's just so good, and such a good port of the game. I think, yeah, stands up really, really well. I don't necessarily feel like you lose much for the port for that game. Sounds amazing. Outrun, obviously. You know, Outrun is such a bright and stunning game in the arcade, and looks amazing on the 16-bit systems. But I think it looks really good on the Master System. It is cut down, it is cut back. You know, there's less scenery in there, there's less detail. The music's a little bit more 8-bit, which is fair enough on an 8-bit console. But it's still absolutely Outrun, and you still find yourself humming away or whistling away to the music as you play it, and it still has that vibe. The track layout is pretty much the same. It is just as challenging to play, and it looks good. It's very, very playable and enjoyable, and racing games back then could be quite difficult, you know, with things like draw distance and stuff like that. You know, they could be quite hard to play. So Outrun just seems to overcome that, and it looks like Outrun, it feels like Outrun, it is Outrun. It is absolutely fantastic. And then obviously Bobble, and who doesn't love Bobble? I mean, if you've ever played Bobble, it is such a sweet little game. It's so cute, and the little monsters in it are really lovely. That you know, the characters that you play, and even the little sort of alien baddies are quite sweet as well. The little ghosties and the little clockwork robots and all those kind of things. It's just a really lovely game, and it's nice that you can go back and you can take the passwords, and you've got infinite restarts as well. If you want to just basically solve for each level, you can absolutely do that, and it just drags you in. You can play that game for hours, and I absolutely have done that. Even recently, I played it the other day, and I kind of wished I was actually playing on the Master System, so I couldn't record it. I kind of wished I had, because I got quite far, and it was just really enjoyable, and you could just get in the zone with it. It's fantastic. So, and again, that has just a lovely, really simple little soundtrack, which you just sort of find yourself whistling along to while you're playing. So it's really lovely. So I hope you really enjoyed that. You know, like I say, the idea really was to give you a bit of a flavour of that arcade magic from the mid-80s, and just talk a little bit about how that's been on the Master System and how those ports stood up at a time when I think coming back from the arcade and wanting to play those games at home and seeing those games at home was just an amazing thing. I mean, hearing that Outrun soundtrack on a Master System in the 1980s, or any console for that matter, any machine in the home, hearing that soundtrack in the 80s was just something that just gave you a warm fuzzy feeling, because it reminded you of good times, and it still does now. You know, it really does now. And I mentioned, you know, about Outrun and what fondness I have for that game, and I hear that soundtrack and it just transports me back to my childhood and going to arcades, whether I'm playing it on the Master System or whether I'm playing it on an authentic cabinet in the arcade. So hope you really enjoyed that. Coming up next on the channel, we've got the Porsche challenge coming up. So that's the lap time challenge for this month on Retro Red Steve's channel. So looking forward to doing that. I've had a bit of a play of that game already. And it's another racer on the PS1 that I've not played before, but it's quite a fun game. It was quite nice, actually. Quite a pretty looking game for considering its age. So we've got that coming up, and I'll bring my son Ollie in, and we'll do that together, as has become a bit of a tradition now for the channel. We're doing that. It's also nearly the end of the month, so it is almost nearly time to pack away my Master System, although I am going to be keeping it very close to hand because I have really enjoyed it. So spoiler alert for that video, I think you know how it's going to go, but I will also talk to you a little bit about some of the other games I've been playing on there, what the experience has been like, how you can go find a Master System for yourself or get and play the games, you know, through emulation, those kind of things. So I'll talk to you about all of that sort of stuff as well, give you a little bit of a background of the console itself as well. And then obviously straight after that we'll be getting the 2600 into the 2600 Plus into the living room, so I'll be playing on that as well. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because that in those 8 years between when the 2600 Plus came out and when the Master System came out some 8 years later, that gulf in technology and advancement in 8 years you just don't see that nowadays. It's huge. You know, you're talking about full color games like Outrun and Rtype on the Master System versus games like Combat on the Atari 2600 Plus, which are really simple graphics, no background music, very limited sort of interface. So it's going to be interesting to see how I get on with that, and whether I actually do enjoy going back and playing games that are that old. I have enjoyed going back and playing games from the mid-80s, but going back and playing games that are really that old, whether that's going to be quite as much fun. But we will see, and I will absolutely give it my best shot and see how I get on with it. So that is also coming up. And then, yeah, that's what I've got planned at the moment. But I've got lots of other thoughts as well. As I mentioned before, I do want to pick up a couple of Wonder Boy games, so it's not the last you've seen of the Master System. I will be getting back in and playing that. And I am quite keen to go back and revisit some games on the Spectrum as well, which was last month's machine in my month with series. So I do want to go back and play some stuff on there. Yeah, there's so many things that I want to do. Just not enough time to do it. So we will see. But yeah, I think that's probably it for today. So yeah, again, like I said, I hope you really enjoyed that. If you do enjoy these videos, please do hit that like and subscribe button. It means so much to me. Genuinely mean that. So thank you so much for those of you who have hit that button and offered their support. Up to now, it means so much to me. So thank you so much for that. But yeah, I think that's probably it for today. So until the next time, do take care of yourselves, and bye for now.